Howdy, 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 and thank you for joining me tonight. Tonight we have quite a topic that we're going to be going over, and it was something I didn't feel that I wanted to do by myself. I wanted some folks that I trusted, some folks that I knew would put the truth out there, and we could have a open dialogue, open debate about it, and have a great roundtable as to what we're doing. So, without further ado, I'm not even going to play games with this. First up, we have Michael. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Mr. Poe.
And if you could do me a favor, throw your link out there. If anybody has Michael's link to, you have a YouTube channel as well?
Yeah, it's literally Michael at literally Michael.
Right there in
There
your
it
name.
is.
Oh, I'm stupid. So,
No.
tell us who you are, Michael.
I'm Michael. I'm from Los Angeles, California, born native here. Child actor, artist, and now designer to many of the stars, and activist for Scientology kids getting out of Scientology.
Excellent. What is that on the wall behind you?
This is actually a picture I painted back in the 80s, and I had a series of these, and this is actually magic. And 10 years ago, I realized this is my mom because she was so magical in my life.
I think it's awesome. Anytime I meet another creative, I'm always happy for it. So
yeah, it's pretty special.
Excellent, excellent. Well, the next person, I have said it many a time, she is someone that if I have something that I'm in question of, and sorry, folks, you know my sinuses. She's someone that I trust her opinion, whether or not I like the opinion or not. I trust it because she's going to tell me the truth, and I don't have to worry about it. Many of you call her the Mama Bear, so let's welcome Miss Marilyn Honig. Hi, Marilyn.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Michael. Great to see you.
Hi. Good to see you.
Hi.
And we all know Marilyn around this channel. She's been around here enough.
Yeah.
My next guest is someone we have had yet to have on the channel. I have been watching his content for quite a while. I'm amazed by this. I thought young man, but he like you, Marilyn. He puts it out there. He's not going to hold back. He's going to tell us the truth. And he's
literally.
Yeah. Yes. So let's welcome our final guest tonight for the roundtable, Mr. Serge Delmar. Hey, Serge.
Hello, guys.
Hello.
Hi.
Howdy.
Hey, baby.
Cute.
So, Serge, if you could give us just a little bit of your backstory. I doubt anyone doesn't know who you are, but everyone here should know who you are. But just a quick, brief overview of who Serge is and what brought you to this point.
Yeah, I just grew up in Scientology, and I am advocating on behalf of the atrocities that we survived as kids inside of those hotels and commercial buildings.
Absolutely. And you've been, as of late, we all know everything's just literally seems like it's been blowing up between the arrest of Aaron, the assaults that have been going on, and now we have the blog, and we have Miriam and the horrible story of what's happened to her and how she's been treated. I felt that I wanted to have a roundtable type discussion here. I wanted people who, like myself, are going to put it out there. We're not going to worry about sugarcoating things. We're going to put the truth out there. And one of the things that has worried me from day one is meeting a lot of former Scientologists. It seems like this mindset carries over from Scientology into the secular world. And just a discussion how we can break that and what it needs to be done to start bringing these people to break that mindset and become part of society and be more productive and better citizens and better, I don't know how you would say it. They're going to be better receivers of those who are coming out and be able to help them to get on their feet as well. So,
Sure.
First topic, of course, is that whole mindset. We have Serge, former Scientologist. We have Marilyn. You are a member of another cult, and that doesn't diminish you because you weren't in Scientology. You went through a lot of the same things. Michael, you're there dealing with it every day and the mindset of it. And you all know me. I'm a former law enforcement officer, and I look at things from a completely different perspective than a lot of people do. So I think we have quite the grouping here. So first topic, of course, let's talk about how it feels when you first come out. what it feels like coming into the world. And Serge or Marilyn, either one of you.
Ladies first.
Okay. Yeah. Well, being in a cult until I was 36, it was difficult to go out into the world. Number one, you're indoctrinated to think that everyone out there is evil, and our cult leader always said, "You're going to be flung on the dung heap," which is basically the shit pile. And so I didn't really know what the shit pile, the dung heap was, but I didn't want to go there, right? Now I'm here and I love the dung heap. It's great. But I was scared. I was scared for my children. I was told that my children were going to be, drug addicts, prostitutes, everything. They were going to have cancer. Everything was going to happen to them. And so I was scared, but I just knew that staying there was worse. I would rather go to hell than stay there. It just got to be unbearable, So we had a different language. We had a different way of thinking. We had everything was just different. So for the first 10 years, it was just learning to operate in the real world and how the real world works. I really hadn't even necessarily deconstructed it from what I had happened to me. And when I watched the Aftermath show with Leah Remini and all of you, Serge, you were on it. Your story was just, oh my God, like, just every story. I cried. I went through cases and cases of Kleenex. And at one point, I don't remember exactly what episode it was. I just jumped out of my chair and yelled, "I was in a cult. Oh my God," that's what it was. And it just checked off every single box. So even now, I feel like even in this space, I'm learning to deal with things that kind of come up. And it is hard to be talking about trauma all the time, to be, bearing like the sadness that I hear. Um, Liz Ferris's story, Kelly Copter's story. And I just, those are, my two close friends now. And I tell you, I would go to the ends of the earth to defend these second gens and third gens and even first gens, but yeah, that's sort of, one way that I feel like I can contribute is I can at least just be there, hold space. And I have been there to a degree. I mean, Scientology is so different, but it's also so similar.
And Serge, what about you, sir?
I would say that it's taken a very long time for me to be able to reconcile with everything that happened, because we were living a lie. Our entire life was based on a lie, and a lie that permeated all of our peers, all of our friends, all of our parents. All of our parents were, like, let's say they were all taking crack. It was creating a delusionary state, a cognitive state of mind that wasn't actually based in any reality. It was based on all these books from L. Ron Hubbard that, made them become extremist. It's like when you think about terrorists, why can someone do something so egregious? Because they've been dehumanized already to a state of mind where they're not even cognitively dissonant. They're just fully cognitively dissonant. So, and what you were just saying, Marilyn, is the words and the language sanitizes what is actually happening, right? And as humans, we're so susceptible to get a pitch, and then all of a sudden you think that that's actually what it's called, right? Like when we go into Scientology, for example, like you just brought up Miriam, like out 2D means nothing. But in there, it meant that someone broke a rule of, having sex with anyone inside of that hotel, because the whole idea was like, we're so puritanical here. We're so about the ethics. And again, that was the pitch. We really want to be ethical. We really want to be great people, but you cannot be great people by breaking the law. And you cannot be great people by, propping up hotels where the laws are broken on a daily basis, based on, a convicted felon that wrote books that pitch for those laws to be broken and to act as if that was going to be beneficial to anyone. So it's almost unthinkable to want to be able to recover and understand and reconcile the sober facts like just what you said, John, is what are the facts? Everyone was running on a book. New York Times bestseller, mind you. Endorsed by John Travolta and Tom Cruise, mind you. It couldn't be that we're all doing something horrific and illegal if everyone has been endorsing it so much and everyone's going around the hotel hyping it up nonstop, because that's all they do. If you're not hyping it, then they're coming after you. Why you're not hyping it? You're not liking it anymore? Like what? So it's that egregious, unthinkable, untenable position that humans are now inside that culture. It's a culture. It's a whole entire culture, and it's it's the good old keeping up with the Joneses. Like these people weren't keeping up with the Kardashians; they were keeping up with the Joneses. Like anyone that was part of that hotel, we're all doing it, right? Our kids are all going through this, so it must be okay because we all did it. And that's a very dangerous place to be, right? Because if we just go with that type of we all are into this, then you end up with people that have no critical thinking skills and unfeathered access to children. And that is just never going to work on its face.
Absolutely. Michael, you bring a very different picture into this, as the love of your life is a survivor of that. How does that impact you and the impact it has on your relationship?
For me, because I was, we had talked earlier about my father and being abused by my father. I came from that side of life where I was just, always being abused. But once Serge and I got together and I started hearing the stories from the background of the kids, and then I started meeting more of the kids that were in there that were second gens coming out and hearing their stories and watching, their experience and breaking through that. Like we're talking about breaking through it. It's like, I see them and I always say there's a breakthrough, a breakdown, breakthrough. So these kids will have a breakthrough, but then it triggers a whole breakdown. Like what Liz is going through right now is like this whole breakdown right now, but it's a healing process at the same time that they have a chance to break through again, and they have that breakthrough, but it's levels and it's so deep. And so being with Serge in the very beginning, I really encouraged him to get some, some outside help. I'm like, I've seen therapists, I've seen, life coaches and all that. And Serge finally, started seeing some people, and he's grown so much since we've met and been together that, there's things that I'll bring him into and just show him these parts of life that he never had a chance to really experience when he was inside the cult. He never got to experience, I, as a kid, I had a most magical life. And, with everything that I was doing, I was in the movie theater, movies, and I was acting. And then everything was magical in my life. But then to see these kids that never had a chance to have that are just now coming out, or been out for 10 years even or longer, and they're just still trying to get through everyday life, going like, wow, it's like one of the closest ones are with us is Laura FM. You guys probably know her, and
she's awesome.
Yeah, she's great. And we were there last night at a show where Serge and her were singing, and it was just so beautiful to see them together singing at a show, because they were able to experience something that they were never able to experience when they were inside.
Absolutely. And Serge, why do we not have a live stream or a recording of that?
Oh, we do.
Do
Okay.
yes, I watched it
Did
earlier.
you? I'll let you know. I work full time. We own a courier service, so I do that Monday through Friday, on top of the bazillion emails and calls I get a day. So I am trying to catch up with everybody, but I don't catch everything that's going on nowadays. There's just way too much. How was that for you, Serge, coming from an organization that so frowned upon, hated, and pushed you away from anything within the psychiatric or psychology field, to then begin going through counseling, going through those, the different kinds of steps that you need to start healing yourself? I'm sure that having Michael there and supporting you was fantastic, but how did that feel initially, the thought of going in to getting that treatment?
Well, it's been a long journey, right? Because the first time I did end up with a psychiatrist was when I first left Scientology just by myself. Michael wasn't in my life yet. and it was the most paralyzing, most terrible. It's like what you really do call rock bottom.
Right.
Again, once you come out of this, you have to now reconcile with the whole betrayal blindness that developed as a result of everything you went through. And it's almost unthinkable to think that for a child to reconcile that their parents put them in harm's way is unthinkable. It's very, very hard thing to process, because you have to almost now process the death of that parent, this delusion you had in your mind about who they were in your life and what it meant for them to approve of you and all of this, because the whole time we were in that toxic codependent relationship with them, right? We've never known anything different. So we've never had that separation. So the first 2 years were the toughest, and I ended up going to see the psychiatrist because of the very unhealthy coping mechanism of unaliving that comes after you go through this. Like, that's the only thing that gives you any sort of numbness to the pain. It's almost like, okay, but you can end it. Okay, but you can figure it out.
And
So
I think you and Marilyn both, how does sharing your story, sharing these traumas, does that help in your healing process as well?
I would say yes, absolutely. I mean, like Michael said about having things come up, different layers, different things that I had suppressed. I mean, it's not like I didn't remember them. I just didn't deal with them, put them on the shelf. And even in this space, I mean, I am healing right before everyone's eyes. And also, I hope that others are feeling the same way, that it's cathartic. But also, I've realized too that there are times when I have to like put the brakes on, and it's hard. And this week I had a little episode, and I realized I had to take a day off. And Paul, because I think you asked me how I was doing, and I said something like, "I'm bawling my eyes out. I can't talk," because you're like, "Can you talk?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah. And what did I say then?
Wait
Hug
till
your
I get
dogs,
home.
hug your husband. So, Serge, how about you? Have you found that this has helped with your healing process as well? Letting your truths out there.
I mean, what's most healing, I feel, for us, and I've spoken to a lot of second and third generations that have left, is the amount of support that we have from people. It's so overwhelming. And it's, again, going back to what Michael was saying about that experiencing something we've never experienced before in our lives. It's like people showing up for us that don't even know us, like literally don't know us, and that are being so supportive and showing so much compassion, care, empathy, all the things that we were always striving for, right? Because that was the bad, toxic, codependent relationship we had with these people at the hotel. We were always trying to be approved by them. And I feel like it's helping to have a diverse community that is watching us. None of us are perfect in any way, shape, or form. It's like part of this healing journey, and exposing all these facts and all these horrible things at this level and scale there's going to be a lot of thorns on the road. But going back to what Michael did say, it's like it's breakdowns and breakthroughs.
And I think that, far too many people put too much emphasis on the word normal. I don't think any of us are normal to begin with. A lot of us are good at hiding our traumas. A lot of us are good at hiding our fears. And Michael and I, in talking before this, finding out that we both had horribly brutal fathers who treated us in ways that should never be happening. But yet we both had amazingly supportive and beautiful mothers who were there for us. I know in my case, I knew that my children would never feel the fear of me that I had for my father. And Michael, how did that guide how you've become the person you are now?
I just, my life is like, I have integrity and I have compassion for everybody. I feel for the people that are still inside of Scientology. I feel most for the kids that are inside Scientology. I want them out, because hearing all the stories that I've heard from the second gens, third gens, even the first gens, of like what's happened inside, it's just like, it's so unthinkable that it's going on today as we're sitting here today in our own chairs. That, that I think that's allowed me my compassion and love and making magic through my life. It's like, I'm a designer. I create wonderful events. I design people's homes. I design restaurants, and, I just create magic where I go. But it's like with Serge, it's like I was able to put my arms around him, hold him, and just hug him, and just let him be him, and just allow him to grow with me, and just show him, there are other ways of life, and just watch him bloom through those different levels. And it's like, there's, sometimes it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back all the time. I'm sure, Marilyn, you go through that a lot. It's like, that whole breakdown, breakthrough. It's like, it's like, and I see that all the time with the kids. One of the things that, it's, there's so much that's going on. It's like, there's people out there today that are doing things that have gotten out that, say they're out of the Scientology cult mind, but they're still inside the cult mind. You see it. And it's just like, it's just very frustrating for me to see somebody not take time and actually maybe get help themselves. I think their ego gets in the way.
And I think that leads us right into the main point of this is, not only do we have the people who are escaping Scientology, but they're bringing the same toxic mentality into it. But now we're starting to see that folks who were never in and were never part of any kind of cult organization or toxic organization like that, they're picking up on that and they're feeding into it just as much. And what amazes me is we have people that are sitting there saying, you can't talk about this, you can't talk about that, because if you do, you're harming this community. I don't think this community can grow if we don't face the things that are wrong. If we continually just allow things to happen and cover it up, we're doing just as much damage as the cult itself is. And watching this toxicity and sitting there and being heartbroken, watch what happens to Liz Ferris, what's happening to Marilyn. It tears me up that we have people who think that they're in the right by trying to shut you down and shut your voice down. And it hurts. It really does. Serge, what were your thoughts when you started seeing these things come about?
It's like none of us can control the way things develop, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the only thing we control is ourselves and how we respond, hopefully, to these events instead of reacting. And I think that's what it behooves all of us to sit back and let it be, because we cannot control it. It's like the LAPD keeps showing up and doing nothing as people get beaten up. And it's like, we have the receipts, we're letting it be. We get to just respond, and to respond intelligently, even to unintelligent treatment. Right.
And I think that, I've been trying to show it as much as I can. I try to be as compassionate and empathetic as possible. Yeah, there'll be times where I got to open my mouth and be a little less than happy about things. But, where it comes in, for me, the biggest part is when I start watching people that are my friends, people that I love, and they're being attacked for being honest. Mm-hmm. I just can't hold my tongue at that point. It's a toxin that is only going to help to destroy this community even further. Mm-hmm. And Michael, like me, you're not actually part of the Scientology world, but you're in this community through your love and relationship. What are your thoughts seeing how some of these folks are acting and the way that they're treating others?
It's unthinkable.
Absolutely.
It's like, really, it's like they left one cult and started another cult.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect wording for that is that you're, but you're not only starting another cult, but you're drawing people into it.
Exactly. You see people getting sucked right into it as well. And all of a sudden they're repeating, and it's really sad. And it's like, there's such an there was such an opportunity there to make a difference. and the controlling, the egos that I've seen. It's just like, it's hard to watch sometimes.
Oh yeah. And you know, I think that one of the things that they underestimated, well, two things they underestimated. As Marilyn and I have been talking about, there have been a number of people who have I've been getting phone calls, I've been getting emails, I've been getting messages through Facebook. People, and at first I'm like, what the hell are these people doing? Why are they trying to say these things? I was going live with Marilyn Chad the other night, and a minute before our live started, I get a call from someone who we would consider an OG, and they're like, hey, I want you to think about this before you go live tonight, before you start saying things. Marilyn's like, you're being handled. And I'm like, holy crap, I didn't even think about that. I'm normally
Yeah.
the one who reads this stuff out. But now, you know, Marilyn, you're getting it far worse than I was. I mean, the way that you've been treated, you know, without bursting a blister, can you tell us, you know, how this has had an effect on you?
Well, you know, there's no comparison. I don't think I've had it worse. I think maybe from my perspective and my background, maybe it has affected me more deeply because of, you know, different triggers that you know, who knew, right? That
Right.
words like discreet, words like keep it in the family. Um, I haven't gotten to the point where I
Wait,
can
wait.
really.
Could you use some discretion before you go any further here?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something right now, Poe. I'm not afraid of you.
I'll tell you one of the things that absolutely amazed me in this. I don't think that Serge, I don't think they would come at you like they did with Marilyn. And I know that they didn't come at me like they did with Marilyn.
Mm.
But I think that they absolutely bit off way more than they could chew because they thought that Marilyn was going to be a pushover in this. And I think they learned very quickly, Mama Bear ain't like that. So
Well, I think they were trying to get to some of the second gens through me, you know,
yeah.
talking crap about them, using very black and white language. Mike Rinder's blog was 100% correct. See, I'm not, you know, I've actually listened to the things that even Mike and Leah taught in the Aftermath Foundation, right? Or Aftermath show. So I've taken it all in, and I have really been trying to heal while also being there for others and seeing people grow, you know, and trying to grow myself. So as crappy as this was this week, I feel like I really did grow. I did a stream, was it yesterday? The days just meshed together. I think it was yesterday about triggers, you know, and I kind of took the journey through the range of emotions, you know, and the breakdown and then the breakthrough, you know, and exactly what Michael's saying. And it's hard to go public with it, but the thing is I realized at one point I needed the community's help because I couldn't handle it myself. And the more you cover things up, because when I was a child, there were things that were terribly wrong.
Yeah.
I was treated, and it was keep it in the family, and you can't cover up like with Miriam. You know, I went through, you know, not anything nearly as bad as that, but something, you know, along those lines, and physical abuse as well. So no one's going to tell me to keep it in the family. I'm not their family. I don't know these people. You know, I feel like I can choose my family now. I can choose my
Absolutely.
family.
And Serge, what kind of have you been experiencing these kinds of effects towards you? You know, if they are, I doubt they're doing much because I don't see you shutting up. So, you know, I know you're so quiet and pensive about things, but you know,
Yes.
how's it been going for you?
Well, all their efforts are failing because we are a decentralized movement, right? And that's what I say about our community. And that's why diversity is power. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of conniving tactics to get everyone to get on the same page. I would know because we saw how much effort it took to get everyone to shut the hell up that were part of this hotel. And it's a non-stop 24/7, 365 operation for it to work like that, because humans aren't normally like that. You have to be forced to become part of that conspiracy, which is what it's called. You're working in a conspiracy now, and you would know, John, from gang. How do gangs operate? It's the same shit, different air freshener is what it's called.
Yeah, there's another
Yeah.
content creator who had wanted to do exactly that kind of episode where we talked about the mirrors of gang life, organized crime, and then we have these cults and how they mirror each other in the way that they set things up. They bring people in and they make them so dependent upon the organization. And I think you really hit the nail on the head there. This is very much like pretty much any other criminal organization that's out there, whether it be mafia, gangs, motorcycle gangs. They all operate in the same way: get you in, break you down, make you become so dependent and so loving of the group that you're with, even though the group's making you do horrible things, you feel you can't live without it. And I just, it's amazing to me watching this after having worked, the motorcycle cases, worked again on the gang stuff and the narcotics organizations and how they all operate. And then I'm seeing the exact same steps being used in Scientology and in other cults on their members. And Michael, as someone not like myself, not in, but the love of your life being there, watching this happen to them, how does that affect you?
Well, it's really, and this, I'm glad you asked this because, recently we've been out protesting and protesting and protesting. And I was,
Not Surge. No, he
not
doesn't.
Surge, right? But it's like, it's been a big groundbreaking thing for me too, because me being out there, it has affected me in a way that I didn't even expect, because I was out there to be up against Scientology and supporting getting the kids out of Scientology, but who's supporting Scientology is the LAPD.
Yeah, and that's another great point we were talking about.
Yep. And that triggers me because I've even spoken to them. And, we were in the Hollywood office with one girl, and she asked me to go in with her to be her support. And I was her support. And the sergeant at the time says, well, we need to we have to stay in the middle of everything. We have to stay in the middle of everything. We can't be on one side or the other side and all this.
Right.
And in his next breath, he says, but you guys are pretty loud and pretty obnoxious out there and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I looked at him, I'm like, is that staying in the middle of it?
Yeah, it absolutely disgusts me, the things that I'm seeing coming out of LAPD, Las Vegas Police Department, Clearwater Police Department.
Yep.
They, they can say what they want, but definitely the fingers of Scientology have dug deep inside those organizations, and they are having some kind of controlling effect on these organizations. They wouldn't be acting the way that they are if they didn't have some kind of outside influence pulling them in a direction. One of the things is the fake calls in about certain things that could go boom and how they act about it. We got to the point where we were getting those kinds of calls almost daily for our local high school. And that was simply because kids, they thought it was funny and it was an easy way to get out of school for the day till they realized they had to spend half the summer there. But it got to the point where we were literally going to that high school every day. We started training the security staff to go through and make these checks. And if they saw anything out of the ordinary, they got, we would do basically as hands off as possible, let them do the checks, because, at a certain point, that it's not real. That people are doing this specifically to impact something else. And in your guys' cases, it's you guys out there protesting and exposing the truths about this. And it absolutely disgusts me to see these organizations acting this way. Now, Michael and Serge, what have been, have you had other instances of dealing with any of these departments and how they've been acting?
Well, it's so many times that we've been out on the Hollywood, at the Hollywood station, Scientology, where they do all the personality tests, where they're calling the police every day. They were calling for another reason. And it wouldn't be just one car pulling up. It'd be 4 or 5 cars pulling up. Oh,
Right.
there's a BOMB threat. Oh, someone's got a GUN. And it's like, it was just get to us. That's
Yeah.
all. And the fact that they would come just in groups and taking that power away from the community. If the community really needed some help, where are all the cops right now?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Yeah, let's see here. There's a comment here. But for the first coffee, Susie Oberholtz, they never evacuated the buildings. One of the things you have to remember is that we, as a police officer who's been in these situations, if it is an adult person and they refuse to evacuate, it's almost impossible to make them evacuate, because then you're removing someone from a situation where you have no valid warrant to do it. And it gets to be quite a pain in the butt, but you don't always get the evacuations, and you get so many of these calls coming in that going to it, it's most likely going to be a false alert to it. But you still have to show up. And every time we got one of those threats, every car that was working, and then we got cars from other departments would meet us, and there would be this huge show of force. I'm not surprised by the amount of officers who are showing up, because you have to make that appearance, and you have to look like you're at least trying. But it's the way that they handle it once they get there, and the way that they're treating those of you who are protesting. And Serge, what were your thoughts on other things that you've seen been going on?
Well, what you just said actually triggered something in my mind, which is about you cannot even force someone to evacuate, even in the case of a credible threat. You still, as a police officer, cannot go and remove that person out of the hotel or commercial building that they're in, right? And that's why, everything I've talked about is kids cannot consent. If you're under the age of 18, what you're being exposed to inside of those hotels, you cannot consent, and police officers cannot move someone that is an adult out of a facility. Doesn't matter how much we protest. We could be there all day, all night, crying, squealing. They will never have the power to go in and grab someone, and because then it goes into kidnapping, then it goes into false imprisonment, then it goes into, there cannot be protocols where we selectively take people out of places and then selectively not. If you protest to get people out of a place, so I get that. But, the point here is the underage kids are being placed in harm's way. The adults that are in charge of them and overseeing them are deluded out of their MF mind. Absolutely. Because they've been lied to in ways that I wouldn't wish this on my literal worst enemy, the type of fraud that's been perpetrated on them. So that's pretty much the only defense that they have for having involved themselves in this cultural of systemic institutionalized crime cover-ups and all of these disgusting things, but so that's really kind of where we are right now. It's like we're protesting for the kids who cannot consent. Like I've talked to Miriam, Jenna, Liz, Nora. It's like we always had this fantasy that one day somebody was going to come and say, no one that is a minor can be here.
Right.
We would have been like, oh, thank God, because we knew what they would do to us if we wanted to leave. We owe them, by the time I was 18, I already owed them I think $40,000, maybe upwards of that. So we were dead bondaged. We were under all of these false lies, like you were saying, Marilyn, this is going to happen to you. All of this, the world's going to end if you don't help us, and all this BS. And it's like, the most horrific abuse that took place to the ones that I've spoken to all boiled down to when we were 5, when we were 6, when we were 12, when we were 14, when we were 15, when we were 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. Then it's like, you become an adult, and even if horrible things happen to you, I can still be more like, okay, I'll have to get over that. Like, but it's like the thing that you cannot get over is it's what's being done to kids who cannot consent. And that's where the LAPD has no excuse at this point to not be figuring out what in the hell is going on. Don't take our word for it. Go and investigate it yourselves.
Now, Paris Cashin has a really good statement about that, but she says the grossest part is the LAPD tips off Scientology before they arrive, or building inspections, or child protective services. How can they be sure about trusting Scientology that they aren't abusing the children? it's not just that. If when I spoke to Mark Bunker, one of the things that we went over was the fact that, you know, how Aaron had put out the video showing how the living conditions in that hotel down there, where they were literally building bunk beds 3 and 4 high out of 2x4s. But when they showed up to do the inspections, everything was back to great. It's not just LAPD. It appears that we have that in Clearwater. And Michael, you were talking about Las Vegas PD. What was the instance there that you were talking about?
Well, there was his DOA. He was out in Vegas for the Super Bowl, and he decided he'd stop by the Scientology building, and he was there with for 5 minutes, and in 5 minutes, not one but 7 cars showed up. You know, sorry, I don't know if they're sheriffs there or, you know, police officer, but they showed up, and the first thing they were like, come here, talk to me, you got to leave. And he was all in his First Amendment right, being where he was. And so at the end of it, they all ended up leaving, and he was still able to stay there and protest. But it just shows you, like, in 5 minutes they showed up. And you said something earlier, and you brought up a comment about, you know, when we call. When Aaron got attacked that day, Serge and I looked at each other, and Serge is like, oh my God, we got to call 911. I called 911, and they took the report. I told them where we were, gave them the address, and then I jumped on a bird. I went to go look for the suspect because he had disappeared, and I found him, and I was following him, and the police still had not arrived 30 minutes later. And so then I made a second call, and finally they showed up. But it was just like, if Scientology calls, they're there in a second.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's you know, that goes back to the point I was making about they have their fingers in these departments somehow. They are having some kind of manipulation over what happens with them. And, you know, Serge, talking about the children and the trafficking and all that's been going on with that, you were talking about coming from from Mexico and the Mexico org there. And how is it that you got here into the States? Was that through Scientology, and what led up to that? And were your parents part of it?
Yeah. So in 1993, after the IRS approved them to be a religious thing, then they went around giving minors letters that we really needed to come and be a religious person for them over here. So what happened is my mother ended up flying out with me to Mexico, to the Juarez El Paso border, because that's where I was from. And they were making us rehearse all these lies that we were supposed to take immigration about how, oh yeah, we're going to continue school, and, you know, there's a school over there and everything, you know, because I never finished anything past 7th grade. My education stopped at 7th grade, which was when I was in Mexico. And our parents were actually financially rewarded, not with cash, but from the fact that, you know, I was, I believe, 15 at that point. So my parents no longer had to pay for any type of schooling for me, any type of, you know, food or anything. I mean, you and Marilyn have kids, you know how expensive kids can be. So
Yeah.
So as they're having to spend all this money at the hotel for their so-called services, and they are provided this like dumping ground, so-called legal dumping ground, where they can discard of their underage kids to have no financial responsibilities anymore or anything else. Like, it's making a child disappear. And then with this, you know, with a lot of also other rewards, it's like, oh, you donated your child to us, he's really going to help us save a world. And then they get all manner of back-end help deals, and oh, they get a commendation, they get this special award here. So they're viewed as these like big contributors. Oh, you have 2-3 kids in the Sea Org. All mothers that had the more kids that would provide to the Sea Org, the better status they would get. You know, they wouldn't give them a literal certificate, but it was like everyone knew, oh no, yeah, I gave all my kids to the Sea Org. And some mothers would be like that. It's like, oh yeah, my 4 kids are in the Sea Org, and one is an executive, and one is an auditor, and one is an ethics officer. And they say this with a full straight face. It's not like they don't know what the post entitled, Poe, but the fact is that they treated all kids as if they were adults.
Absolutely.
And that's what's So
Did they give
dangerous because
custody? Did they give up custody of you? Did
they
you have
gave
a
up everything. Their
guardian?
passport. Oh, here's my passport. Here's this. Here's that. Here's everything. And
And they
we
signed
didn't
you
even
over.
and we didn't even have a guardian. There was not even a guardian program there. You would be told very sort of like, oh, this is going to be your guardian, but it's no one that ever checked with you or did anything, And just going back to one last thing too, Poe, that we talked about the failure of the police departments. And this is
Yep.
breaking news as of 48 hours ago. Epstein victims accuse FBI of enabling sex trafficking in new lawsuit. So
I'm surprised that list has come out with all these names on it. Yet before that list came out, it was huge national news. The Epstein Island, Ghislaine Maxwell, everything going on with that. Suddenly the list comes out and it's radio silent. And I think that that's very telling of, especially like with Scientology, how the media somehow becomes deaf and blind to the fact that children are being not only abused, but they're being trafficked for that purpose. And yet we hear nothing from the people who supposedly were all upset and up in arms about it before the list of friends and family that were making these trips to this island. Or in this case, we have Scientology that is bringing these children in. And yet we have story after story after story of children being so horribly abused on all different levels. Yet you're not hearing anything except from the survivors and the supporters within the community. And it's heartbreaking. It destroys your faith in humanity when you see these kinds of things. And I mean, 100%. You and Marilyn both. My heart goes out. It just breaks when I hear what you guys have gone through, and how it was all on the basis of this is a benevolent religious organization that's here to save everyone. Yet they don't talk about the piles of victims that they've left in their wake to do this. It absolutely disgusts me to my core.
Well,
Go ahead.
can I share this? It's like we took a trip to Hawaii. Serge had never been to Hawaii before. And so we went to Hawaii, and it was beautiful. And it was like he was mesmerized by the mountains and the waterfalls and the ocean and everything. And he was on the phone with a reporter during the whole trip. And during all that, when I was driving around the island, showing him this and showing him that, he was on the phone with this reporter, to him about the abuse and everything that was going on. And the whole trip, he was on the phone with this guy, just breaking it down. What does the reporter do? Turns around and just reports the lightest little like, oh, and doesn't even dive into the child trafficking.
Yeah.
It was horrible. I was just like going, what the hell,
Yeah. And that to me, I mean, I know that in the case of Marilyn and myself, we went through these abuses, and one of the things that was very dear to us and we've held on to very tightly is our children would never have to feel that fear in their lives. Yeah. And I in my case, what broke me made me stronger, and it made me that much more based in the fact that my children would never feel that fear of me that I had of my father. And Marilyn, your take on how you felt about that?
Yeah, I had to really take responsibility for what I allowed my children to go through. They were 5, 6, and 9 when we left the call, and I tell you, they saved me. They saved us. And there was just, I believe that, and I'm just gonna say one thing a little bit kind of a round robin here, but I think it's important, is that I believe that there is in every person a soft, compassionate, loving, inner, authentic self. And what cults do, because they break you down, and they're so cruel, and there's no compassion, there's no unconditional love, there's nothing. And I didn't really have a mom. Unfortunately, my mom passed away when I was 5 in a house fire, so I didn't have that. But something in me, like I still have that mama bear thing. Something in me rose up, and when I saw my children through the abuses that I went through, I said no more. And it still took 2 years to get out of there. So I feel like there is still hope for those parents and hope for those children. But I feel like it's been a process. I've had to really learn from my kids and say, hey, just because I'm older doesn't mean I'm smarter or better or anything. I've learned more from them probably than they've learned
Amen.
from me. Yeah. It has been a process, and I'm still going through it. And I just want to be there for them. And it takes some humility, it
Oh,
really
yeah.
does.
Yeah, that's one of the things about it is we have to, if we're going to be better parents, we're going to be better people, we have to admit what our weaknesses and what our wrongs are in the first place. We can't move forward until we accept what we have done and who we are. And that's the only way, in my opinion, that's the only way to true growth in it. But going back on this point about the children, Serge, how many children did you see while you were in there?
I mean, there were hundreds, but they've been thousands and thousands because, again, it's like all Scientology parents to one degree or another expose their own kids to it. And, majority of Scientologists had 1 kid, 2 kids, 3 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids. I mean, there were all manner of, and again, it wasn't, as a child, it wasn't optional for the most part. I mean, sure, maybe there's some, kids that can say they didn't get exposed to it that much because there was a spectrum. I mean, my parents
Correct.
were on the complete, like, that they literally broke the dial, but it's a lot. And that's what makes it so looking like it's also kid friendly too, John, because it's like you see all these kids around you. It looks like a school environment. Everything looks kid friendly. It's a luxury hotel. You don't think you're in some, Tom Cruise is showing up, John Travolta's gonna come, you guys, and you feel like, no, we're so lucky to be part of this hotel. We are so special being part of this hotel, and it's like as kids, you're just so gullible and naive, and
Absolutely.
everything you're impressed by everything. It's like, oh my God, they're wearing fake Stolen Valor uniforms. Well, to us, that was a big deal. Like to
That
us
was
was
a
like,
real deal
yeah,
for you guys.
yeah.
It wasn't stolen valor. That was reality. You were actually, that was a real uniform to you guys. So I can understand that completely. And hitting on that point, like you were talking about, do you think that the children of John Travolta or Tom Cruise are going to come out with these kind of stories? Or do you think that they were going to be treated like little princes and princesses?
I
Their
mean,
whole family.
unfortunately, every child suffers, John, but there's definitely, of course, that dial, right? Because somebody in those things has a dial to control and manipulate. Okay, let's go real hard on this one. Let's go real low on this one. They're all being gaslit. Their parents are putting them in harm's way. As long as these children are being audited and being in these hotel rooms locked against their will, it doesn't matter what your last name is. Once they have you in that hotel room, the same abuse is going to be perpetrated on you because L. Ron Hubbard did write it, and everyone's really pressed to follow exactly what L. Ron Hubbard wrote. And that's what I've really kind of like run the alarm on, is the fact that we were locked up in these hotels against our will. If we said, no, we want to leave, stop, don't ask me more disgusting questions, it was double down, triple down, quadruple down. And it could be me doing it as a 12-year-old auditor, or it could be another auditor doing it on me, because it was just a role play. And we were following a script and we were groomed with dolls. I mean, just like how we know PEDOSs love grooming the kids with dolls, with things that look very kid friendly. So the environment doesn't scream like people in cages.
Sorry,
So
Roscoe's barking. So, now, we've heard about it from Liz and we've heard about it from Nora. How was it on you knowing who you are and did you have to hide it and keep that suppressed to keep yourself from being victimized even further? And, what kind of toll did that take on you? And again, just like with Marilyn, I'm not asking you to burst a blister if that's what it's going to be, but some kind of feeling of how that felt for you and trying to be who you truly were.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because we've never felt part of the LGBTQ community because we were always under this false identity that we had to be in order to survive in that environment.
Mhm.
So yes, we had to hide it. So yes, I would say that we had it worse than anyone else, right? Because it's like they came at us like being 1-1, that was their code. Being 1-1 was code for the most decrepit, disgusting, it was all the most disgusting things that L. Ron Hubbard wrote about anyone else. It's like the 1-1 was like everybody knew, oh, 1-1, like a tone level or whatever. So it was horrible. And I've talked to a lot of LGBTQ kids that went through this, and yeah, they, it's, you're constantly being interrogated, and you're constantly being interrogated because they suspect that you have that, and you constantly have to say, no, I don't have that. Because if you say that you have that, you're treated worse than a self-admitted PEDO. I mean, imagine the PEDO gets more grace because as long as they were not into the same sex, then, oh, everything's great. You're fine. We're going to float your needle and it's going to go away. And it's just like, it's so ridiculous because it's so stupid. It's just
Absolutely.
stupidity. It's just full-blown stupidity. But
The amount of self-hatred that it had to have caused on you. I mean, as we talked about the horror, Michael and I were talking about the horrors that my father brought on me. That was one of his favorite things, was to call me an FAGGOT and do everything that he could do to degrade me and make me feel bad. And the thing was, I'm not LGBT. I'm hetero, and I have been happily married for a long time. But for someone who is LGBT, and then have people saying these things about you, the amount of self-hatred, it's like a cancer that I think that's how that would feel. Like it's burning in you. You want to be who you are. You want to be open about who you are, but yet you're so fearful of the fact coming out. I mean, is that part of how it felt for you?
yeah, it's like having spiritual cancer is what I would call it.
Yeah.
To be precise, it's like spiritual cancer, because again, it's like you're always being disassociated from your body at such a young age, because they keep telling you you're not a body. Psychology's telling you you're a body because they want to tell you you're an animal, but you're not an animal. And that's literally the pitch. As a child, you're told you're not an animal, you are an ageless spirit. And then they lob bomb and put all these delusions on you about how you're a thetan and you got energy and you're going to have special superpowers and all of this. And it's just a whole disassociative process from your body. So then when your body naturally has hormones and instincts that you don't control with an off switch, they double down and triple down on confusing you more. And it's again, it's intellectual abuse, and it's sadistic at its core. It's indefensible. It should not be. No kids can be around these people because of that. Because again, it's like, if you're going to be that extreme, you don't belong with kids around you, period.
Absolutely. And I've talked about it many times, how in my life, especially with the horrors I've seen through law enforcement, that my wife, who is my best friend, she's my partner and everything, she's also been my soul eater. I've talked about it many times, coming in after seeing absolutely horrible things, just getting on my knees, putting my head in her lap and crying. And I've got to say thank you to Michael, because you know how it is to be that person who loves this injured soul. And thank you. That's, because having someone like you, as I do in my wife, it only makes me stronger as a person. And I'm sure that takes some kind of heavy toll on you as well.
Well, it hurts, sometimes, because it's like last night, even there was something that triggered Serge, and he went into a panic attack, and it was a lot of the things that he was dealing with during the day, talking about during the day and all that. But, him and Laura were singing last night. And he had such a great thing. But after the, that endorphin rays of the songs and singing and performing, we were driving home, and all of a sudden something triggered him and he just went down. And it was just like, and I just was like, and I was driving. So I was like, babe, just breathe. breathe, take a deep breath. And so, you know, it does, but it's like, I've just, for me, it's like, you know, I always say we have like a soul and we have our body, and those two have to be in alignment in life, and we can travel through life like this. But these kids never had that opportunity to get into alignment a lot of the times. And so when they do get in alignment, they just like, they burst out with joy and just happiness. And when you see them get triggered, then they get pulled so far out of alignment that they have to go through that breakdown to get through that breakthrough. It's just like, it is. And it's like, I see it, you know, I feel it with Serge, and I feel it with all the kids in my life, all the second gens and all the third gens that I've met. We were at a party a couple of weeks ago, and there was this one girl there, just had a baby boy. He was about a year old. And she was just like going, I don't know how to be a parent. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, just, you know, follow your heart, love yourself, start there.
I can tell you from personal experience, I had no idea going into it how to be a parent. And I certainly didn't have a good role model in my father. But one thing I knew is and we have twins. They're 26 years old now, but they're still my babies. And I've said it before, I'll eat a spoonful of shit every day to make sure that my children feel loved and feel happy. And I know how it feels having a partner in my life that is my sin eater. Serge, how much has that helped you in the traumas that you've had to experience?
Well, I mean, it's definitely been the part of my recovery, right? Because it's like something that I never had in my life. I've never had anyone unconditionally be supportive and not using us, because that's the problem with the whole Scientology hierarchy. It's all a system where everyone is using each other and commoditizing, and it's just not sustainable. It's not a sustainable model in any possible way. It doesn't make sense. So as much as I say only the 18 and under we have to focus on, is everyone above that, we can still advocate for them and state, you know, two things can be true at once. They become these horrible abusers, but they're also completely, you know, defrauded, you know, and it's like, that's the tragedy, right? Because it's like, nobody was asking to be L. Ron Hubbard, except he did seduce him into becoming him, into adopting that mindset. And unfortunately, in that environment, the more you adopted that disgusting mindset, the more you went up the ladder. And it's like, it's horrible, right? Because it's just like a ladder of, the more you adopt it, the more you become like him, the more you're trusted, the more you literally become a senior executive, because you're so in alignment with L. Ron Hubbard. And it's like, you know, so were Hitler's SS officers. They were the most in alignment with what that man wrote on a piece of paper. That was a false pitch. Like, humans are humans. No one's better, no one's worse. No matter how many certificates you have on a wall, doesn't matter. You can be certified for a million things and it still makes you a horrible human based on choices that you're making daily, not on your certificates.
And Marilyn, in your case, both you and Duncan came out of the same organization.
Yes.
Do you feel that since leaving, that has better bonded you and Duncan than you ever would have been in that organization? And has that helped you to grow as partners and two people who love each other?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we left, I went through a little bit of a crisis of, you know, faith, crisis of relationship. We were sort of like matched in a way. So I didn't know, like, did I really love him? You know, like, we were celibate for, you know, almost 6 years before we got married. We had to ask for permission. It was slim pickings, you know, but he is a great guy. I do love him. And I realized that, you know, but it took, we went through counseling. We had to learn to communicate because we weren't allowed. Even though we were married, we still live 5 miles away from this horrible cult, but we're free now. But then, even though we live 5 miles away, we were still being controlled, and we couldn't even talk to each other about us, you know? So then we started to, once my daughter, who was 7 years old, was labeled that she had demons. One of them was Jezebel, which was like the harlot of Babylon, in the Bible, whatever.
The whole of Babylon?
The horror about, yeah. So a 7-year-old with little pigtails who played with their dollies. I mean, give me a break, right? Now I think it's crazy. But back then I was like, oh my God, like, what did I do? I somehow, like, the sin, there's all these Bible verses that get, thrown in proportion, like the sins of the father and the mother visit on the child, whatever. So they were doing exorcists, and I was like, this feels wrong. This got to be wrong. So we were already being accused of having rebellion in our hearts, right? And having all these demons in us. So I said, you know what? If we're going to be accused of having, quote, hidden rebellion and all this stuff, might as well rebel a little bit. So we actually started to kind of sneak around, let our children play with other worldly kids, heathens. We let them take lessons like piano. Thank God we did that, because whatever, goodness,
Yeah.
because they're all amazing musicians now. They're very artistic.
Mm.
And so they started to play with other kids, and we were sneaking around doing this. We started watching movies, PG, but we had a little bit of wine at night. And we started like kind of
You drink.
venturing out just a little bit.
Wow.
Yeah. So we just started having just a tiny taste of freedom. And then, like you, Serge, I had what I didn't even know what it was, but it was a full-on panic attack, because our cult leader said she wanted to come down to my house because I had hidden rebellion and lay hands on me. I don't know if it's like a touch assist or whatever, but I can't really compare. I don't have the language to explain it, but
Mm.
it was like this really weird laying like
Mhm.
pressure on you and discerning all these demons. And I would literally have a nervous breakdown. And I just decided I wasn't going to go through it. And I
Well,
said no. And my
well-
husband finally said no to them, the elders and the cult leader, for the first time in 16 years. And that was the beginning of the end.
Well, the laying
But
on
we
of
started,
hands it comes from the biblical of where Jesus anointed the apostles and the Holy Spirit being bathed upon them and entering them, and they were able to lay hands upon people to expel demons and heal. And you see that twisted in so many ways
yeah,
nowadays.
it's extreme.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And Serge, did you see similar kinds of things within Scientology where you had someone that you would be interested in, but you would have to have permission before you could begin any kind of relationship with them? Did you see those kinds of things, or was it different?
No, it was standard operating procedure. You had to write out what they called a CSW, completed staff work, in order for you to be with anyone, because again, they owned you. They own your sex drive. They own you as a human. They own every single aspect of your decisions and choices. Like, you don't have the choice to make a decision for yourself on anything. And then they're telling you that they're selling you also freedom. So the pitch couldn't be more fake AF.
Yeah. And, Laura Estrada had a really interesting question, and I think it goes for you both. Were your parents allowed to be affectionate with their children, or was it mechanical and conditional, or did it depend? Regardless, you still did not deserve the non-consensual type.
I mean, it came in all different ways. I feel that our parents, even my own mother especially, did show some humanity here and there, although she was extremely sadistic. So it wasn't like but she did somehow. I feel like when she wasn't being an L. Ron Hubbard person, then I saw her true personality come up, where my father was more extreme pretty much all the time. So it kind of just varied. And I mean, I know that a lot of kids have different experiences with their parents, but adulticizing their kid, and especially for me, that was the oldest one, I was never a kid. I was never a kid. I was always given all the responsibilities, treated as an adult, and I was used as a, babysitter. I was used for anything as if I was always an adult. So there was just no discernment in any way, and it's just so illogical. It's what it's giving.
Well, moving on to the point of tonight's episode is, what are the similarities that you're seeing now in folks that are out as compared to how things were run when you were in?
I mean, I think that subconsciously, again, going back to the need of therapy, they have had no shred of self-reflection. And that's all that therapy ever did give us. There's no magic pill they're going to give you in therapy. No magic miracle is going to happen.
No.
You're just in a space analyzing trauma that's so deep rooted. And they, you know, if you have no self-reflection, then you are a full-blown psychopath. Like, psychopaths don't have self-reflection. That's the reason that they're able to act with impunity and act like, oh, I didn't do anything wrong. As long as I don't get caught, I'm not doing anything wrong, is what they are literally have based their whole life on. It's like, oh, no one has told me that this is wrong. The law says that we're allowed to have this religion and do whatever the hell we want. Well, wrong, because no, you weren't even allowing anyone to have a shred of oversight over you, and you get very pressed the minute anyone says no, or rein this back, or this is too much. Like, so they're not able to receive a shred of negative feedback. And in what world is an institution that is literally not wanting to receive a shred of constructive negative for your own safety feedback? Like, don't buy this pitch that this convicted felon has your best interest. Just starting with just that one fact is like, because again, it's like all their disgusting abuse was based on the works of that convicted felon. So they cannot help themselves if they don't repudiate it. And that's the whole problem, right, John? They're not on the record repudiating.
Mhm.
This is what was so disgusting about what in the hell I was a part of. It's always, you know, Mike Rinder going, Osa said, Osa did. Oh, it's all this distancing language that is like, look, you know,
Yeah.
you've been given a lot of grace, but, you know, it's the year 2024. Like,
And I was one of those people who absolutely bought into it and I've said it before, how when we found out he was coming into the YouTube community here, a lot of us were so excited because we had seen him on the Aftermath making his apologies to certain people. And we felt that a new leaf had been turned over and that he was coming out as this new person. And, you know, not realizing that who he had been, what he had done. And now you have people who were victims that were harmed under his watch, now having to come to him to ask him or beg him for his help. And speaking to someone who wishes to remain anonymous, they told me that it traumatized them so much more because they thought that they were out, they were finally free of it, and yet they had to go to the person that had traumatized them and how terrifying it was.
Yeah.
And Michael, as being someone on the outside, but loving someone who has come out from it, you know, what are your thoughts and what are you seeing in what's going on in this community of people who are now out?
Well, you know, like I said earlier, it's kind of like, you know, you left one cult and you just started another cult. And there seems to be a lot of people that, you know, that are listening to them at some point, but then there's been this big, you know, shakeup, let's call it, you know, and people are like starting to wake up. And, you know, I think a lot of that is like, you know, Serge, I adore Serge because he's got, you know, being in it for as long as he was in it, you know, being born into it and all that. And then just his understanding of the whole mechanics of the whole cult. And to be able to break down, I remember when I first met Mike, we were in Clearwater. Aaron had wanted to introduce Serge to Mike, and we walked in, and he, you know, he barely said hello to Serge, and he didn't even say hi to me, even though he was introduced to me. And I was just, that was my first like feeling. I was just like, and my intuition's pretty good. My mom was pretty good with her intuition as well. I mean, being a gay kid, you kind of develop this seventh sense, I think, of like being able to watch out for yourself because you never know who's coming at you. Like you said, like your dad would call you FAGGOT. You know, my dad called me that all the time. You know, I was right there with you. So, you know, when I saw him, I was just kind of like this. And the first thing that this person did was like, oh, look at my little bobblehead. And I'm like, what the fuck does a bobblehead have to do with helping people right now? You know?
Right.
And it was kind of like, I saw an ego there that was so wrapped up in it's just like, it's like, you know, I don't think there's been a lot of breakthrough there with that person. You know, he just really is just, you know, and then when Serge was on the Aftermath and filmed the Aftermath with Leah and him, it was like, once again, I went up and said hi to Leah, and I said hi to him, and he just totally ignored me. And I was just like going, where is this guy's compassion? Where is this guy coming from? And it, and it's just like, it was horrible. It was just horrible. And then to see how this is all unfolded, it just really solidified my feeling about who he is. It's like, he's given direction of being like, I see these kids wanting to reach, before all this happened, I see all these kids wanting to reach out for help and all this, but exactly what you just said, John, is that how can they go, look at what happened to Liz, how can they go to this person that was the person that put him there and knew every single thing that happened to them?
Yeah. And Marilyn, on your side of it, as with me, here it is, we're never ends.
Mm-hmm.
We're within this community, and we are trying to be as open and compassionate and loving as possible. And now we're finding ourselves being attacked on almost a daily basis, or people trying to handle us, trying to infuse their thought process into how we should be saying things. I mean, how does that feel coming in as someone, and it's generally referred to, you're the mama bear. Everybody looks to you for that love and support. I know for myself, I'm a different breed. As you were talking about, you, Michael, you saw how people treated you differently when they found out. But, Marilyn, how does that affect your belief and your compassion and your understanding now that you're seeing people that you loved and you felt were part of a family with you, and now they're coming at you the way they are?
Yeah. Well, I think, in hindsight, I see it as a desperate attempt to hold on to power. And in the beginning, not taking away from anything that Mike has done, and Mark and Claire and all that, not taking away from that. They have really helped people. The Aftermath show really helped me. It really did. And so now looking back, though, I see that there was this transition that seemed to be smooth, but it was almost like this infiltration of, okay, this is how you're supposed to feel about Debbie Cook. She's the best thing since sliced bread, right? This is how you're supposed, because that's what was presented to the public. So, and this is how, where's Shelly? Where's Shelly? Oh, she's amazing. We have to save her, Oh my God, okay. So then when we SPTV came, we all were just giving you the aftermath, staying up, doing the chatathons, you and I, Poe, staying up for 10 hours. I really was throwing myself into it because I want these children to be saved, right? And all of a sudden I realized that the focus was not as much on the survivors and on saving children as it was on telling stories and raising money and all this, and just you sit there and listen and lockstep and all this. And I realized I was like, when I started my channel, that I was almost thinking like, what would Mike do? And that's just, like, what would Ron do? What would Jesus do? Right. And I was like, And I started having these like things that make you go, and then one thing after another. And when it really came to a head, because I do have a background in the nonprofit sector, right? As a volunteer, as a founder, as a president, and a board member. And I was just like, hold the phone. And I won't go into it, but about the keyboard warriors and all that and the progression. And if anyone's interested, I have done so many streams about it that I am like, I have a major target on my back. And I'm just saying, I don't think that they realized that the supporters and the public, the appeal for funds to the public, they did not realize that the stakeholders were going to rise up and say, oh, excuse me, wait a minute. And that's one part of it. The other part of it is the second gens have just thrown off the yoke and be like, we'll say whatever the F we want. We don't give a shred of an F. And I am there for it and never shut up. And now I will shut up because I said what I wanted to say.
And, someone had a really good question for you, Serge. How did it feel to sit across from the former head of OSA on the Aftermath program and telling your story?
Well, I tried to be as clear as I could in that program to raise this alarm, and I don't think that the alarm has been raised, because the children that are under the age of 18 continue to be exposed to what we all got exposed to. And I mean, even in that whole show, Mike Rinder was still doing Scientology's PR pro bono. I literally brought up that it was in these sessions that, a lot of extremely highly explicit, what type of content could come up with kids. And you guys can all go watch it. But Mike Rinder goes, oh, yeah, Serge, but Scientology will always say, well, but not in every one of them. And the truth is, John, that yes, in every single last session that a child gets taken in session, that subject can come up, because the whole thing is, L. Ron Hubbard says that if you have a so-called withhold, if you have any secret at all, anything that you feel embarrassed about, disgusted about, ashamed about, then the unworkable technology he pitched doesn't work for
Right.
just one secret. So yes, you're right, Mike Rinder. Not every single session could land there.
Right.
But the fact is that if anybody had that in their head in any way, shape, or form, we as kids were getting punished and penalized for not extracting that sexual thought out of that adult. Like, we were told that we were committing a literal crime. In Scientology, it's a crime to miss a withhold. It's a crime to interrogate a subject and not find out that they did something. If they successfully withhold something from you during the interrogation, it's you as a child who's getting penalized for not finding out. So again, it's like he plays dumb very well. He's such an expert at coming across real relatable and, oh, I'm really going to tell you the truth. But all he ever does is regurgitates what's already on the public record and put distancing language. So he's still doing the same job he was doing inside Scientology outside, except that, now he's made Scientology his little David Miscavige, his fair game target. And he's the who and the why, and only David Miscavige. And if only we could get rid of him. And it's like, in what world are you out of Scientology? David Miscavige at least has the excuse that he's still under the rhetoric and spell, if you will. You, Mike Rinder, do not have that excuse. You've not been to therapy. That's a choice you made. And then what? You're still out there?
I also believe that if they get rid of Miscavige, there's just going to be another Miscavige who steps into his shoes. I don't think that.
And it's the problem, Poe, is that it's the rhetoric that dictates the dysfunction. It's like, it doesn't matter who you replace and goes. Like, Mike Rinder's already been replaced. Debbie Cook has already been replaced. Angie Blankenship. All these people have been replaced by someone that took over their post that did it the same. Because in Scientology, you cannot be that post if you don't find one that has what it takes to do that post. So you cannot replace anything when all the policies and procedures literally are dictating the insanity and normalizing it at an industrial size scale inside of a hotel that is not a church. There's no hotel and church anywhere in the world you can find that operates like this. There's just none. It doesn't exist.
Absolutely. And I want to get into that more about the refusing to accept culpability before we can move on or make this stronger. But Alexandra wanted to know what episode you were on in the Aftermath show.
The very, very last one. So it's like, I think season 3, the last one with Danny Masterson. It's the very last one.
Yeah. And I think Heidi says it the same for all of us. Say it louder, Serge. Speak your truth. This is, I told you this before we came on. We see you. We love you. We hear you. And you speak your truth here. This is a platform where you're allowed to do that. And we're not going to judge you. We're here to support you. So you let out whatever you want. So don't feel like you have to hide anything. I don't think you're gonna, but I just want to make sure you know that. As we're talking about all these, what do you think are going to be the best steps and this is for all of you, best steps for the Aftermath Foundation to try to gain back any kind of confidence from the people who were supporting it? As Marilyn said, she and I both worked several of the chat-a-thons. I gave personally from my own money into the Aftermath Foundation, and that's because I respected the Aftermath Foundation and I wanted to help people that were coming out. What are your thoughts going into it? What they need to do to get that respect and honor back to this organization? How about you, Mike?
I think one, just bare your soul, Mike. Come out of the closet, let's say, in a way. Is like, let people know what you really did. Let people know what you were really in control of, and all that you really know. I think people would actually switch their opinion about him if he was able to have integrity with what really went on. When I was there watching the filming of the aftermath, I was watching him and I was like, God, whose side is he on? There was a question in my head at one point. I was like, whose side is he on? It sounds like he's on Scientology's side, because he was, like Serge was saying, he was always skirting the question back to like, well, policy and blah blah blah. And it's like Debbie Cook was like such a great person, and it's like, and like me, it's like this where's Shelley Miscavige? If I hear that one more time, I'm about to scream, because it's like, she's an adult, she, leave her alone, talk about the kids, and it's like, come on. So I think if they just really like got truthful with the public and got truthful with the people that have left the cult, and just just said, hey, this is what really happened, this is what my position was, and this is what I actually contributed to, and this is and an apology of some sort. But that's a long road for him, I think.
Absolutely. Marilyn, what are you thinking?
Okay, I'll try to keep this.
Now, we know you want to hold back. You never tell us the truth, but
Oh,
go
never.
ahead.
I'm just trying to capsulize it to streamline to be relevant to that question. Okay. I'm not as nice as Michael. I do think he needs to do all that, but I think he needs to do that on his own, as not a board member of the Aftermath. I think number one, step one, Mike Rinder needs to step down. Too many issues. It would take too long for me to explain, but yeah, I think it's obvious, a lot of them. Number two, I think that the remaining couples, if they remain, they need to each have one vote per couple, and then they need to get diversity in. Okay, a member of the LGBTQ community, number one.
Yeah,
Public.
that's not been brought up
Pub-
by anybody yet. I think that is an excellent point.
It's it's obvious. I mean, come on. I mean, that's what are we doing here? So the board needs to have a shakeup. They need to have representation of the population to which they serve. So they need to have people that have escaped from not only the Sea Org and Gold Base. They need to have some of the children that have grown up, the second gens. They also need a lot of things. They need a new PR person. They need to stop calling people names. They need to be trauma informed. They need to have some basic idea of how a meeting should be conducted. None of these emails back and forth, holding a quorum deliberation without a meeting. It's conspiracy, and it's absolutely disgusting and wrong. And the stakeholders, there's $200,000 right there, right now, that have been donated from the public. We wouldn't even care if they had $50. But take your $50, we'll start a new foundation. But there's $200,000, and that liability form. What did you say, Serge? Something about crap with air freshener.
Oh, same shit, different air freshener.
Yeah, it's a veiled. Yeah, it's a veiled attempt to silence people. And I could go on and on and on. But number one, Mike, please step down.
And Serge?
Well, everything that Liz Gale and Marilyn just said, but I also want them to heed notice of this situation, because I think it's very relevant. The FBI enabling sex trafficking in new lawsuit. The anonymous victims allege that the FBI had received credible tips about Epstein's sex trafficking operation as early as 1996, but did not investigate them. A probe finally began in 2006, the suit says, but ended up once Epstein pleaded guilty to soliciting prostitution charge in Florida and was sentenced to 18 years in prison. The suit claims the FBI continued to ignore tips until Epstein was arrested on sex trafficking charges in 2019. As a direct and proximate cause of the FBI's negligence, plaintiffs would have not been continued to be sex trafficked, abused, raped, tortured, and threatened. The suit reads, Jane Doe's 1 through 12 bringing the lawsuit to get to the bottom and once and for all of the FBI's role in Epstein's criminal sex trafficking ring. The plaintiffs also allege that the FBI had evidence of crimes that the agency refused to pursue. During the FBI investigation, the FBI was complicit in permitting Epstein and co-conspirators to continue to victimize Jane Doe's 1 through 12 and other young women. The suit reads, the FBI had photographs, videos, and interviews and hard evidence of child prostitution and failed to timely investigate and arrest Epstein in deviation from FBI protocols. And finally, the FBI had a non-discretionary obligation governed by established policies and procedures, rules and protocols to handle and investigate tips concerning potential and ongoing underage child erotica, RAPE, sex with minors, and sex trafficking in reasonable manner, and to act against Epstein and to prevent him from committing repeated crimes. If continued, yet contrary to its own established rules, the FBI failed to take appropriate action and botched and covered up investigations for years.
Absolutely.
So,
I got to say, I'm loving this.
What do you think? What do you think, John?
First
Yeah.
off, I'm loving this conversation we're having. Just open and honest, put our feelings out there. I got a lot of thoughts about it. First off, I agree with a lot of people have been saying in the comment section, they need to raise the board to the ground, rebuild it.
Yep.
Make sure that the board is representative of all the aspects of Scientology, of the former people who were in. And we need to remove one thing I really liked about the conversation with Nora that I had the other night is that there's been a lot of brushing over, whitewashing, whatever you want to call it, hiding it, that as to what the actual positions people on the board held within Scientology and a lot of the actions or crimes that they may have committed against Scientologists. That has to be completely torn out. You need to have people that are there that are, they don't have to worry about, oh, well, I got to spend all this time in the RPF while you stood on a mountain looking down on me, calling me scum and maggot and whatever. Now I got to come to you and please give me your help. That's got to go. People have to feel safe when they're approaching that board. Secondly, this whole waiver that has come out has absolutely made me so furious that you're going to tell someone, I'm not going to give you help that you need until you agree to follow all of our rules. It's basically like reverse blackmail is the way I look at it. And you're literally holding people hostage to cover for yourself and make sure that you're not going to get in trouble for what's happened. And to start it off with a statement of forever and irrevocably, what the hell? How are you going to make a victim sign that? Yeah. How are you going to make a contract? And then we find out things about they were filming Mike Brown's mom, but yet they were going to monetize the footage that they had. There's no transparency and there is no accountability being held here. So it's got to be wiped. They got to wipe it and they got to start over with people that that are trustworthy, people who are going to be willing to be open and transparent. And I'm sorry to say it, but if you did something that could put you in legal jeopardy, that's on you. And just like you were saying earlier, that these folks have, saying, it's like with the people who were working under Hitler. Well, we were just following orders. You didn't have to follow orders. You didn't have to do that, but you did it because you wanted to. You did it because you thought you were doing the right thing. Screw all that. It's got to go. If you did it, you broke the law. It doesn't matter how you feel now. You did these things. You hurt these people. How many people do we have that are no longer on this earth that they've covered up what's happened with them? And how many of these people that are on the board knew about these things or were active participants in covering things up? That's why I say this has to be raised to the ground, and we have to start over with a clean slate with new people running that board and that organization. And for me to get my trust back, that's exactly what they're going to have to do. And I'm not coming out and wanting people to attack any of the board members or anything like that. Yes, I feel that there have been great things that have happened, but I think it has been transmuted into something that is completely different than what it started as, and there has to be accountability all the way across on it.
You said something that this is one thing. First, I agree. It's got to be raised to the ground. And from what I hear in the background and the noise I hear around is like it's unraveling itself right now, just very quickly. But the one thing that really upset me is not my surge, but the other surge that they did the show after Mark filmed him. They raised, I heard $40,000 at one point, and then more money at another point, and that kid did not receive any of that. That went right into their account. And for me, it's like, what kind of contract did they have him sign? And did you really look at his cognitive age of being able to understand that contract and sign that contract to allow himself to be filmed in that position? I've heard him, and he does not like that episode being filmed or anything like that. And they still keep dangling a little carrot here, a little carrot there, but they've got him under wraps. It's horrifying.
Absolutely. Marilyn, you might be able to answer this one. How do you remove the board of a nonprofit? Vote of no confidence? How do you do it?
Well, there's different ways that things vary from state to state. You can go to I don't know, is it Colorado? I would I'm not calling for anybody to do this. I'm just saying, in most states, I know in Massachusetts where I'm incorporated, it's the Attorney General's office. You can call for some oversight, and there's usually an office within the Attorney General's office. Also, I would I don't know, it kind of depends on what we see happening in the near future. It seems like there's a lot of claim it, right? But they do have to start allocating the funds. They do have to just start dispersing funds. And if people don't want to sign those liability billion-year contracts, then there's going to be a problem. And again, it's the stakeholders that need to hold them accountable. So if you want to do a survey, I don't know, some type of petition, I think some pressure needs to be put on them. I really do. And let me say this too, is that if it does say they all step down, right? Not calling for all of them to step down right this minute. If they did, then the funds, the aftermath is its own thing. Nobody owns it. It's a separate entity. It's a public charity. It actually is not a foundation. It's not a private foundation. It's a public charity, right? So what would happen is they meaning whoever would be oversight of, I'm not really sure, I've never seen it happen. They would have to donate the funds to another charity. They can't have any of it. So
absolutely,
it would be dissolved, and it all has to be legally done. So yeah,
I'm going to put this back in the comment section like I've done on the last few videos I have. If you're wondering how to get in touch with your representative, there's the link to the House of Representatives, so you can find out exactly who your representative is and send them a nice little letter explaining it. And if you want to know a way to do so, I did a video talking about you want to report Scientology, and hopefully that'll give you some ways to look into reporting it. The more I'm experiencing, the more I'm seeing, I am losing a lot of faith in the OGs, and I'm falling more in love with the second and third gens. I think that's something that was brought out that I think is, speaking with, a couple different people. I got Jamie Mustard coming on Sunday night, and we were talking about things that have happened. if you look back through history, especially with groups like Germany, if you look at North Korea, you look at how Russia was when it was the Soviet Union, and how things are going in other communist countries. The first generation never have it as hard as the following generations. The following generations are treated far worse than the generation before them, because there's this deepening of the belief and the want to propel forward the thought process and the overall mission statement of what's in. And that's why when I see folks like you, Serge, and I realize that the people that came before you are laying all of the burdens that were placed on them, they're multiplying it, and then they're placing it on your shoulders, taking that hatred, taking all that violence and anger out. And the thing is that when I watch how these people are that come out of these places where they're, out of Russia, out of North Korea, those kinds of places, and you see what it has happened to them, it just makes me love you guys that much more, have that much more respect for you, because I know what you're going through with things. And, you got us, we support you, and it's much love from us.
Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that the solution really is diversity. They have a lot of problems to figure out for themselves. They are the top of the board, and you know what? Figure it out. Y'all are so smart. No one's saying that you are not smart or capable.
Right.
So figure out whatever in the hell works for y'all. And then everyone can, start more nonprofits, because there's so many aspects of this problem to take care of. And no one should have a monopoly of like, we're the ones that really. No, start anyone that feels like wanting to get involved in nonprofit work, get involved, because it's a free country. You can open it.
Absolutely.
You can have a different foundation with a different purpose, with a different plight, with a different thing that happened to you, right? We don't expect them to take care of maybe the plight of the kids, what I'm literally yelling and screaming about every single day. Maybe that wasn't everybody's plight and they don't care about it. And I'm not here to tell them that they can only care about mine. I can only control what I care about. And then there's other people in my own circle that feel the same way. So everybody's allowed to do what they need to do. And the more the merrier, because we have a lot to really like put together.
Absolutely. Let's get it. We got a bunch of super chats and they're coming across all the channels. So let's hit a few of those, because we got so many questions that are coming up. Luna's mom, and thank you for that super chat. I was in for a minute in OCCA org. Did the Purif and realized I couldn't afford the bridge. When they told me I had to do 20 hours at the org and my 40 hours of work, I was like, what about my baby? My girl saved me. What are your thoughts on that? As someone who's been,
I mean, I see that, she's a mother that made the right choice, right? And I love to see that example, right? Because it's like she went, oh my God, I cannot do this. My baby, I got to work 20 hours plus I got to do 40. It's not going to work. And then she just made a choice and said, oh, I'm going to have to not do that, and then do this. And, that's what we're, hopefully getting other parents to want to do the same thing in Scientology, to start looking after your kids. That's your job. If you have kids, they're your first priority. They should be your first priority.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something, well, when they use the analogy of your old spirits and young bodies, that's just the easy way to help cut that umbilical cord and keep these parents from being so indebted to their children for the love that they deserve. And Luna's mom followed up with, literally, Serge, here's one giant hug for you. I would be so proud if you were my son. I would have sheltered you from this cult. You drive me. I think you wouldn't believe how much love is coming out through these chats. Katie Murphy at Serge, you're such a beautiful soul. I'll adopt you anytime. You are loved.
Thank you.
He's mine, Katie.
Well, she's talking about adopting now. That's
right.
Let's see. PY Serge, I have no personal experience with Scientology, but love your message and love watching your channel. Idea: contact one of those podcasts. Concrete Render has been on and offered to go on and explain your reality best, Philip. That's
Thank
an
you,
interesting
Philip. Yeah,
thing.
shout out to Concrete. Hit us up anytime, Concrete.
That's right.
Absolutely. Don in Wyoming. I just saw Serge smile. For the first time, I think Marilyn made Serge smile. Now my heart is smiling. Love and thank you all from all of us who need you to be. Poe, Serge, Marilyn, Michael, much love.
Thank you, Don.
Thank
I think that's one thing that keeps reverberating from the folks who aren't buying into a lot of the hatred that's coming out, is this continuation of love and support for everyone. And I don't think those folks who are bringing out this hatred and all this vile stuff that they're doing, they don't realize that we have a community that's growing much stronger than what they have. And I think it's great. Lathanda, nothing but 100% support for all of you from this never end. Never stop telling your truth. Yell your truth from the roof. We are here for it. Absolutely.
Thank
I
you.
think that is very, very important. All right, let's get into some of these questions. Serge, are you in contact with your parents? Are they still in Scientology?
Yeah, no, they're still in Scientology, and no, I'm not in any contact or plan to be.
I think there's a lot of Serge questions in here. Serge, that's a great analogy. You paint an amazing picture of life in a cult.
Thank you, Tina.
Let's see here. Ison K comments, Serge, my heart goes out for you. I am a never end, but went through similar abuse. Watching you guys find your voice is also healing for me, and I thank you for that.
Thank you, Asun. Yeah, we're all in the same boat, right, Marilyn? And
And
you
I-
guys
Yeah.
too. We're all in the same boat. It's like it's just different, same
Yeah.
shit, different air freshener.
Go
Yeah,
back and
Liz
watch
Barra
the early
says
videos.
snake
You know.
oil, right?
Yep.
About the same snake oil, different label.
Yep. And that's the thing, is go back and watch the early lives or the early content from all of us, and you can see that progression of how we've all come from almost somewhat mousy and a little afraid and nervous first time getting onto this stuff, and how we've become comfortable, and now we're letting our true emotions go out there. And let's see here. Love it, Serge. You are so courageous, and we are all with you and here for you. And then followed it up with Michael the Angel.
Thank you.
And I
Don.
think
you're
that's
sweet.
very true.
The
You know,
Archangel Michael.
yeah. You know, and
Thank you.
Michael, you know, I love that you're back there. You know, you're very calm, very patient, sometimes pretty quiet, letting a lot of us just rant about things. But it's that kind of love and support that everyone needs.
Yes.
Sometimes you need someone who's not doing the talking, that's sitting there listening and understanding what's going on, and that's beautiful.
Thank
Let's see. Oh, this is a good one for Purple Groovy. Things are not getting worse, they're getting uncovered. We must hold each other tight and continue to pull back the veil.
Very well
Good
said.
point.
And that's why the thumbnail for the live with Nora showed the Wizard of Oz with Toto pulling the curtain back, because there's so many things that are being hidden from us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it takes people like you, Serge, like Nora, like Liz, to actually pull that curtain back and expose what is truly going on. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. For my son again. Keeping your mouth shut for the greater good just opens the door for abuse from behind closed doors. Being open is the best disinfectant.
Yes.
So true.
Let's see here. We're going through all these. Serge and Michael, you amaze me. Two beautiful souls. Absolutely.
Thank you, Susie.
I second that opinion. Let's see. Love it. Marilyn, you have gone through unthinkable horrors. Love you. I think we all agree on that.
Well, I don't compare. I mean, there's everybody has something, but yeah, we can all heal together. We can learn and grow together.
And this
Thank you
one's
for
from
love.
Violet L. Do most people evacuate when there is a threat? Oftentimes, most people will evacuate, but you get those who like, nope, I'm an adult and I'm going to do what I want to do, and I don't care what you say. We literally had a train that derailed, and it was probably 500 feet from my house when I was working with my first city, and it was what they called the death train. had any of those cars leaked, it would kill people within a 5-mile radius. And there were people like, nope, I'm not leaving my house. And I'm just like, okay, well, that's going to be your choice. I can't make you do it, but just make sure you leave the door unlocked. So when I got to come back and scoop you up, I know where you are. So, but no, and it may be different in other states, but here in Michigan, we weren't allowed to force people to evacuate if they didn't want to.
Mhm.
And that's a reality of it. It's part of those constitutional rights.
Mhm.
All right, we're coming up on 2 hours here, folks. Michael, starting off with you, any closing comments?
I just want to thank you so much for having me on the show today. It's just, our voices are strong. Our voices are not going to get weak. They're just going to get stronger. And it takes a team, and everybody that's in the chat, everybody that, follows all of us, that subs us. It takes a team, and we're all a team together, and we couldn't do it without the team. So thank you very much for including me in this team today.
Oh, I'm honored to have you here. Thank you so much. And your voice is just as important as anyone. And your love for Serge and the way that you are supportive of him makes you a very vital component in all of this. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Marilyn, I know you never like to
Yeah.
talk, but
I know I never like to talk. Yeah. Along the lines of what Michael said, thank you, Poe. This has been amazing. Great questions. I feel like, it was a great balance of listening to the chat, which there's so many smart, amazing, supportive people. Love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Serge, I'm so inspired by you. I'm just so amazed at how far you've come. I know we've had Michael, the archangel, looking over you, helping you. I have my own angel, Duncan, my husband, and he's right now keeping the puppies quiet. We have 2 puppy Pomeranians, and yeah, it's like you said, it just takes a village, and I'm just so privileged and happy to be in this community. And yeah, just thank you so much. Thank you, Paul, too.
Thank you. And the most quiet of us all, Serge.
Just closing statements is thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone for caring and showing up and empowering survivors. And it's wonderful to be in a community of diverse survivors where we can see the commonalities and then share our own experience to make lemonade out of these lemon rinds that we were given. I don't even think they gave us lemons. They're like, here's some lemon rinds and make some lemonade. But you know what? We're making the lemonade taste good. And that's what matters, because we are on the side of truth and we do have the facts on our side. And we do care about everything that happened to us, because there's a lot of wisdom to alchemize all of that darkness, and that's all that you get left with. That's all that's left for us to do. It's to alchemize that darkness and show up in ways we wish someone would have showed up for us when we were there in those moments of being frozen, because that's what happens to you when you get traumatized. You're frozen in that time and you get paralyzed, and you're experience real trauma in your brain. So the more that we can advocate for people to find resources and ways to have a supportive community around you and different sources of help, so that you can, you deserve it all. You deserve it all. So whatever abuse told you that you weren't deserving of anything, it's actually the contrary, because everyone deserved to be cared and be humanized. So thank you for everything.
I just want to say thank you all so much. Michael, Serge, Marilyn. I think that this again shows that there is hope and there is a chance that we can build the community that is needed, and that we're going to be able to build a foundation that those that are coming out after the ones who are already out have something there that the folks before them didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
That we're able to show the evils of what has been going on, but that yes, there is hope for everyone. And I think that it's important that instead of worrying about attacking each other, we need to worry about helping each other. We all have traumas in our life. We all have shadows that we're trying to come out of. And it doesn't matter how normal or how based you think you are. We all have these traumas and we all have these experiences we need to get over. And I thank you all so much. This has been an honor to be here and be part of this tonight. I think it has just been a beautiful thing. And we've all been able to show our true selves in this. And for those that have been here watching, as always, every second of your precious time that you spend with us is appreciated. The love and support we're getting from every one of you means so much. It means more than any money could ever mean to us. You're helping everyone to heal. You're helping people to get on their feet and show how strong they can be. And as always, folks, life is short. You get one shot. Make it count.